Hello and welcome to Sport for Business, the latest in our series of leadership interviews. I'm delighted to be joined today by Niall Woods. He's the founder and CEO of Navy Blue Sports. Hello, Niall. Very warm welcome to you. How are you getting on at the moment during these strangest of days?
Yeah, I'm good, Rob. Thanks for having me on. It's definitely strange, although it is sunny outside, which is good. So yeah, I've been doing well. We do a lot of remote working anyway. So we'd be used to it, I'd say, more so than other companies. So it's just a more enforced habit. I'd do a lot of stuff on the go anyway, traveling and driving around and stuff like that. So being stuck in the house and the three kids being stuck in the house as well is a little bit challenging, but getting used to it. So yeah, a lot of thinking, talking, listening to companies, listening to people I trust, reading lots of stuff online and newspapers and stuff. So about the situation, ways to get out of it, making cuts, all that sort of stuff. So it's different, but I suppose it's a new experience. You need to try and take the learnings from it. We can't change it. It's there until the 5th of May. Could be extended. Hopefully we'll be eased at that stage. So just trying to get on with it, and then doing a bit of housework, gardening, painting, power hosing, and cycling, which is keeping me sane. That's my go-to place when I'm stressed. Get out on the bike for an hour or two and try and sweat it off.
Very good. Doing circuits around the 2K, obviously, close to where you are. Tell us a little bit about Navy Blue Sports. I know that you've had a career in rugby, both as a player and then going in on the representative side. But Navy Blue Sports has been on the go now for around about the same length of time as Sport for Business. Where did it come into fruition?
I suppose, as you said, I played rugby, both amateur and pro, got a career-ending knee injury, retired in August 2001. So I then worked in the Players Association over in London. So that's where me representing players started. A little bit by chance, in that I was struggling with an insurance claim, spoke to the Players Union, and ultimately they offered me a job because they were looking to take someone. Within the first year, I saw the opportunity to start the Players Association in Ireland. So I came back then in January 2003 and ran Irupa for 8 years. So, and again, the latter part of that was looking to do something different. Wanted to stay within rugby, within sport. It's what I'd done since I'd left school, although I had trained as a chartered accountant as an amateur. So I had a good sense of business and how you run a business. So talked again to 3 or 4 people very close to me, and all said, why would you get out of sport? One of them mentioned starting an agency. So I thought about that a few years before, and then I was thinking, look, I've done it collectively. No one else has ever been an international professional rugby player, run a players union, and then been an agent. So I'm one of a kind in the rugby world. I don't know if anyone else has done it in other sports. So that's where it started. So I started, Geordie Murphy was my first client, still have him. I assume he's happy. So he's been great. So, and then it just grew sort of year on year, and outside of rugby into sports media, representing women in sport, some athletes. I did some cricket at one stage, and we've looked at different stages at other sports as well, just to continue to broaden and grow the business. So I suppose one client in January 2011, in January 2020, or 2020, we over 50 clients across all those different walks of life. So it's been a good journey and really enjoying it so far, and are still.
Yeah, very substantial business. And Fiona Coughlin came on board with the business as well a couple of years back as well, who we know very well. Great addition to the business.
Yeah, like Fiona obviously retired from playing in August 2014, so after the Women's World Cup. So started representing her then on speaking engagements and sponsorship opportunities, and then had a bit of a Jerry Maguire moment on a ferry, a Stena line to the UK probably 3 years ago now, about trying to get her in to work with me, just because I loved the way she was. All of the values in her are similar to the way I do things and the way Navy Blue Sports does things. So tried to get her out of teaching, but the school recognised they had a good one there and wouldn't give her a leave of absence. So she works part-time for me, so she's great, and she's attracted clients. They're attracted to her in that they see the qualities both as an athlete when she played rugby and how she conducts herself currently. So I've got her in Originally, I'm trying to get her more on the rugby side now as well, although she's doing a lot of commentary work as well. But on the sponsorship, she did a number of sponsorships last year for us and helped us grow that side of the business. So she's been a great addition.
Okay, and the media side has grown out as well. You've got Darren Maloney and Dave McIntyre and a few others as well.
Yeah, and that's an area we're looking to try and grow as well. We look after Richie Sadler as well. So originally it was more on his negotiations with RTE and his contracts there, and then it's broadened out. He's a qualified psychotherapist. Obviously he did his book last year, so he does a lot of speaking in the whole mental health and mental fitness area. So yeah, it's an area I enjoy. I did a bit of TV work when I finished playing in the 2000s, both with Sky Sports in the UK and 5 Live on radio over there, and then when I came back a bit with Setanta. So it's an area I have a lot of contacts there, both in the UK and here, so I enjoy it. And again, it's similar principles. We're different to a number of the agencies here in that we negotiate contract values as well. So as well as sponsorship and commercial opportunities. So I like negotiating. I suppose when you run a players union, that's what you do. You do a collective. So I love getting into the nitty gritty of getting down and getting the deal done. But always you have to have the long-term view there, because obviously you're going to have to work with these people again, so you can't just go in gung-ho and be sort of obnoxious, even though sometimes you'd like to. There's plenty of times you can't be, so I think I've learned that over the years. But yeah, the whole business of negotiating contracts is similar across different walks of life, but knowing the market values is the key.
Okay, and we spoke, these are the strangest of times. Who could have ever imagined that sport would just hit pause and disappear from our screens, from our lives, from our pitches and our stadia? How was it impacted on Navy Blue Sports as a business, as well as on you and the team personally?
As I was saying, because we do a lot of sort of off-site work or remote working, that side of things hasn't been too bad, other than we're not in the office sort of 3 or 4 days a week. So there has been cutbacks like every business, because a lot of stuff has come to a standstill, but 96% of our rugby clients have contracts for next season. So that side of things, that's all done and dusted. The sponsorship side, the sort of personal appearances, the speaking engagements, events, as you're saying, literally, I've never seen anything like it. It's just, it has come to a grinding halt. So from that side of things, the revenue, we increased by 25% last year. That's probably going to go back to either the same level as last year or as 2018, or could go worse. Depends how long this goes. So it's definitely a new experience, something no one obviously in our lifetimes has experienced. But the way I'm looking at it is to try and manage it as best we can, look at sort of possible routes out of it, protect the business, talk to people, see what they're doing, and then try and be ready to kick on as soon as things go back to some level of normality.
Yeah. Have you found that it helps that everybody is in the same boat? So there's nothing peculiar or unusual to any of our circumstances. We're all in this together, and we don't know yet where the horizon is.
Absolutely. And every time you talk to someone, particularly within the business of sports, it's similar conversation. So there's cuts, there's uncertainty. That's the most common word. But personally, when I retired from being a professional rugby player, I didn't have a salary for 6 months, and then my salary dropped for 75%. When I started Navy Blue Sports, then I dropped about 60%. So I'm sort of well used to cuts and how to make them. And again, the accountancy training and background helps in running a business on a day-to-day level. So I would see myself as having experience to be able to tell other people and clients how best to do things. Obviously, I'm not an expert in that, but just the personal experience goes a long way. So it's really a matter, and you talk to people and people are just saying, some are uncertain what they'll do or how they'll react, whereas others really are just saying, look, it's just the way it is. We're all in it. No one's any different. Like, majority of businesses are shut. Yes, there are some exceptions outside sport, but it's just a matter of preparing for when it starts again. Hopefully that's sooner rather than later.
And how have your clients been reacting to this? Because obviously they're in the midst of, for the most part, they're in the midst of a rugby season or an international sporting cycle on the media side of it, full on, going at 100 kilometers an hour, and then all of a sudden, bang, everything stops. For a group of individuals whose life has been pretty linear up to now in terms of moving from one stage to the next, this must have come as a real shock to the system.
Absolutely. And again, because it's totally new to everyone, that's the shock is even greater. But even you like have rugby clients or athletes as clients, but the sports media guys like Darren Maloney, Dave McIntyre as commentator, he's not getting to any live sport to commentate on. So it's driving him nuts because he loves the adrenaline of live sport. So he's like a fan in a way. So the fans are missing it. The commentators are missing it. And then ultimately the athletes are. So rugby players, it's just such a different thing for them because they're so used to training collectively or in groups, whether it's weight training, fitness training, and then team training. So they're having to do everything on their own. So that's new, but they've just literally got on with it. Obviously, there's been salary deferrals with the players here. It's circa about 40%. So that's a big chunk of salary for anyone, no matter what level of income you're on. So they're dealing with that. Some of them are studying, so it's a good time for them to be studying because they've plenty of time. There's no distractions. But also you'd be talking to them as well on how they are mentally, how they're coping with it, because obviously it's a difficult time for anyone. So and you don't know who has or doesn't have any mental health issues. So that side of it is important. And that's sort of part of being an agent or a manager. There's an element of you're like a second father to some of these players. Some of them will need more of that than others. Some are like me, they just get on with things and just keep going. And you just drop them a text sort of every couple of days or once a week, and they're going, yeah, no problem, just training, just wait until I can go back into the team environment. Yeah. And then you've athletes like Natalia Coyle and Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe, who their season was just starting off in modern pentathlon in prep for the Olympics in July. So they'd done savage sort of pre-season training for 3 or 4 months, just getting into competition, and bang, stops, and then they find out the Olympics is off. So mentally that's very tough, I'd say. When you train as an individual for 3 years, 3.5 years into the cycle, then probably 4 or 5 months out, they're telling, no, you're done, and you have to delay it another 12 months.
Yeah. The way that both the federations and the governing bodies are handling it, it is very much an athlete first and an athlete-centered approach. But of course, they'll all react to it differently as well in those senses. On that mentorship side of it, that must be really important. The element of having you as somebody they can talk to that isn't their coach and that isn't somebody who's living in the house with them. Does that weigh heavy on you, or is that something that you enjoy being there for them?
Yeah, I think it's naturally in me for whatever reason. My father was the same. I know I've talked to lots of people about my father. He was an accountant, and he would have advised people over the years on different things. So I think that's in me. I then did the Players Association for 8 years, the guts of 10 years between the English one and the Irish one. Mm-hmm. And you naturally are paternally looking after people. So I enjoy it. I suppose anyone who helps people enjoys it. The fact I had the personal experience of being a pro helps automatically. And then the personal experience of taking, when I say to someone I take 75% pay cut to a rugby player, they're just looking at me going, well, now it's on the phone. How did you cope? And you're going, well, you just do, because you just cut everything out. And then you have another cut sort of 10 years later, or whatever it was. So I do enjoy it. And not all of them need it, but certain ones do. So, and you have different ages as well. The rugby players are all in the similar bracket, obviously probably 19, 20 up to about 35. Yeah. I've then coaches who are clients as well, who some of them are my age. Sports media guys are a bit older, in around 40 plus. So they've been around a bit longer. So they may not need it as much. And then Fiona deals a lot with it. She's a school teacher by trade. So they're very comfortable going to speak to Fiona as well. So I suppose that takes a bit of the weight load off me as well. Sure.
You've got players and individuals who are not only in Ireland, but spread across the world as well. And I know you look after Sarah Rowe and Sinead Goldrick, who were both down in Australia. Yeah. How was it for them coming back unexpectedly, perhaps? I know that they were coming back for the summer anyway, but came a little bit earlier than they thought.
Yeah, I mean, Sinead was her first year out there, so she came back, I think it was a week earlier than Sarah. So she loved her time out there, loved training as a pro, the first time ever, and was looking forward to finishing out the season. But look, she got the opportunity to get home, and she got home pretty easily compared to Sarah, who was about a week after, and then there was a couple of days where she wasn't sure would she get home or not. So Sarah's done it 2 years now, so she loved it, but also loves football. So they're both coming back, looking forward to going into the season up here, having the benefit of all the training as a pro for 4 or 5 months down there in game time. Yeah. So yeah, they're frustrated, but again, they're into individual training sessions, trying to keep fit, trying to make the most of the time. So I've a rugby player in Italy, so he's been in lockdown pretty much for 5-6 weeks, where he can't go out the door, other than the letter at the time you have to go shopping, and you have to be out and back. I've client James Coleman's coaching in France, so he coaches in Aix-en-Provence, but he's in Pau at the moment, so he's in lockdown. So I have a client, Jerry Sexton, Johnny's younger brother, who plays for the Southern Kings down in Port Elizabeth in South Africa. So they kindly let him back up a number of weeks ago. So his partner and the baby came up with them. So he's in Jersey at the moment. So I've lots of different conversations in different jurisdictions. I've John Barkley, the former Scottish captain, as a client as well. So he's in Edinburgh. So there's big cuts coming in Scottish rugby. So obviously we've had the deferrals here with rugby. There's cuts talked in RTE, varying broadcasts, companies, clients everywhere, work companies, everyone's talking about pay cuts, furlough in the UK. So it's difficult times. Yeah,
very much so. That sort of sense of how people are dealing with it and how they're managing themselves is clearly very important. From the athlete's point of view, in the physical terms, you've mentioned there the individual training sessions. How much does the uncertainty of when their season might either recommence, or in the shape of the Gaelic football season, how it might actually start or whether it will start? How are they coping with that? Most of them are in that team environment. Obviously, Natalia and Arthur would perhaps be a little bit better equipped because training on their own is what they do. But from the team environment, how are they coping with that?
They're really well. Like, not having any calls or conversations where anyone's really down or sort of upset or stressed by it. They all seem to be just getting on with it. Like, I think it's an Irish thing. We just knuckle down and go, right, this is the situation. We're going to have to work through it. I mean, they don't like it, but they're not really complaining. So there isn't, other than that, there's not really much I can say. Like, they're not calling me a huge amount, more than they normally would. It's more me checking in with them. So I would say they're coping really well.
Would they, from the physical point of view, are they running around the park? Some of the rugby players have probably got home gyms and things like that they can actually go to?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them have boarded in. Like, a number of my clients have a lot of equipment at home anyway in their houses, but the rest of them pretty much are all kitted out now, thanks to Max Sport Ireland. To Philip, seems to have been doing great business in the current climate. I actually tried to buy something off his website yesterday and he sold out. So. But yeah, they're just getting on with it. They have their gyms. Some have access to fields and pitches. One of my clients lives near Independent Park in Cork, so he can do his running in there. So it's within his 2K. So, but some of them don't have that. So I'm lucky. I have a Gaelic pitch up the road here, so I can go. I'm doing some goal kicking practice with my 12-year-old. So
very good,
which is good fun. Nice just to get out onto a pitch.
Yeah, in terms of coming back, we're all kind of beginning to look at different scenarios as to when seasons might be able to restart. We did a big piece of research across the sports business community last week with Onside, and we're looking in Ireland potentially at July and August as being a time when things might start to move again from a sporting point of view. But internationally, it will be a lot longer than that as well. What's your sense as to when particularly with your own interest in rugby, let's start with that. When do you think that might actually be coming back?
I think domestic, no matter what country you're in, is going to be easier. because that excludes the travel dynamic of flights in and flights out. So from a rugby point of view in Ireland, that's quite difficult because obviously the Pro 14 is across 3 other countries, so or 4, between England, Scotland, Wales and Italy. So, and then you go to Europe for the Champions Cup. So I don't see how that will be played other than behind closed doors if they want to play it in July or August. So realistically, my view would be probably September, October time will be rugby-wise within going across to different countries will be played. Whether that's be open to full houses, full crowds, probably not. Maybe restricted crowds. So how they do that, I don't know. So whether they play Leinster v Munster, Ulster v Leinster, whatever it is, initially, the international game will be later, but will be played because it's the most important games from a revenue generation point of view. I mean, there's Australia, it's widely documented, are in financial difficulty. They were before this crisis. So the international game sort of drives a lot of the revenue for most of the countries anyway. So that will have to be played. I don't see the Pro 14, obviously the final knockout stage were cancelled. I don't see any of those games from this season being played, purely because you can't go across countries. Like the travel, there's restrictions there, and then medically it's not safe to do so, to put the players in a situation, even if it's behind closed doors, to have, there's 23 in a squad, they'll have a few more traveling, there's about 20 backroom staff between each team as well. So you've got the guts of 80, 100 people. So gatherings of under 50 will probably be the biggest initially.
Yeah.
So whether a pro rugby game is feasible for that, I don't know.
Okay. It would be interesting. All of the things that we've always considered to be normal just look very unusual now. And you're right, the idea of watching people in a stadium, watching people playing rugby or sport of any kind seems to be a little bit strange at the moment. Just before we finish off, I want to check in with you as to how you feel that we're all going to emerge from this in terms of how we were going in versus how we are coming out. Do you think is there going to be a particular change to the way that sport is both seen internally from within our industry and externally as being the inspirational element that it is?
I think definitely once it returns, and it'll probably take a period of time to get back to some level of normality. But I think you've seen from people writing about it online, talking about it, like they're craving it. I don't think they realize how much they would miss it when it actually stopped. You've natural breaks, so rugby in the summer might stop for sort of 6-8 weeks and people miss it. But this total lack of any sport at all has shown how important it is to people's day-to-day lives. So I think it'll go back to normal. It's just a period of how long that will take for it to be normal is the key question. And that's the uncertainty. I think we'll see games behind closed doors initially, and then with some crowds and back towards full capacity crowds. Will be interesting to see from a sponsorship point of view, do any sponsors just pull out because of the crisis? Because that will have a knock-on effect within the various sports that they pull out of. But it also, the way I view it, is opens opportunities for other sponsors. There's other sort of strands of life that are not necessarily prospering but still working at the moment. So whether they then decide to go into sponsorship, so may leads to new opportunities. But you would have seen, obviously I saw the piece with John Traynor yesterday and the research he did. And initially in January 2020, there was a bit of skepticism as to the spend on sponsorship, not just in sport, in general. And obviously that's been exacerbated by the COVID-19. So there's a bit of trepidation, having been through a recession of a different kind in sort of 07, 8, 9, 10, 11. The spend is less, but it gradually picks up and kicks into gear again. So I think that will probably happen again. There will be some victims, whether that's a governing body, whether it's TV companies or whatever. Ultimately, player contracts in my business from the day-to-day side of it will probably be affected as well. But certainly within Ireland, we have the capacity just to knuckle down, work hard, get on with it and get out of it. And I think that's what's going to happen. We'll put up with a lot and we'll work hard. That's our DNA.
Yeah. positive way to finish off. Thank you very much for your time, Niall. Particularly like the piece of artwork behind you there in your new home environment.
Yeah, I'd like to say it's mine, but my creative side on the artistic level is definitely with my wife and my son. So that's my wife's piece behind. So the abstractblonde.com, I'll give her a plug there. So for any good value art, she's busy at the moment, which is good.
There we go. Every cloud is a silver lining. Well, thanks very much, Niall. Sport for Business carries on. We will be back with the daily news digest landing in your inbox every morning at 9 o'clock. We've got a second wave of live webinars coming up as well. Great reaction to the first series. And the second ones, we're looking at esports, we're looking at social media, we're looking at a number of case studies across the sponsorship world as well. So doing our bit to try and keep the community engaged and occupied. Let's have a look back on these interviews in 6 months' time and see whether we were able to see around corners or whether we looked like fools. We won't make a call on that at the moment. You certainly didn't look like a fool today, Niall. Thank you very much for your time, and the best of luck with Navy Blue Sports and to how you go through this and come out of it the other side.
Pleasure, Rob. Thanks.